Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming and listening to us this afternoon. I know you guys are all ready for the drinks and stuff to start later, so we'll help you along there and educate you as well. So my name, oh, I don't have a back button. Thank you. My name is Robin Mankey-Cassidy. I'm Director of Product Marketing for our networking and security stories, and I'm presenting today with
Akhilesh Dhawan, I'm Director of Product Marketing, looking at the security messaging.
So we're going to talk today about how to address the growing cyber threats for our applications, our infrastructures, and our networking. So first of all, if you have the desire to tweet, more power to you. Citrix Synergy, Citrix is how, and this is SYN120. So please pass it along. So we're going to talk a little bit today about the state of the enterprise, security. What is our Citrix security approach? How do we envision and are driving our products to help answer and solve for a lot of these issues? And we're actually going to focus on three, and we're going to talk about the fourth one a little bit, areas of focus on our access security, our device security, and how to protect our applications from insider and outsider threats. So first, let's talk about the state of IT. Yesterday, everything was in our data centers. We managed all the endpoint devices. We had antivirus on everything. We had web app firewalls. We knew where everything was, and we knew how we were protecting it. And we knew how people could get access to it. And as we all know, that's changed. It's funny, we used this slide last year, and it was already kind of behind the times, if you think about it. We've all been using phones forever. I'll admit, I actually had one of the first Windows CE phones, specifically to get to my Windows servers. So when I got a call in the middle of the night, I didn't have to get in my car and drive all the way to the data center to figure out what the heck was going on. With remote desktop, I could easily get from my phone into my systems. That became available to all of our customers, right? All of our users. They have their phones, they have their tablets. Most of us don't even manage endpoints anymore. They're bringing their own devices. Antivirus has changed. How you manage these devices have changed. And where they're working from has changed. A lot of call centers no longer are a physical location anymore where you controlled everything. Call centers are people working at home, and they get a device, they get an internet connection, and that's how they do all of their calls now. So because of this changing market, as well as the apps that we're using, so we used to all have, either the canned apps, or we built our own apps, and we had Oracle or SAP. But now we have all these SaaS apps. How many people changed from SAP or PeopleSoft to Workday? Yep. How many people are using ADP now for their HR and things? Yep. So it changes how we interact with our applications, but it also brings new security vectors that we have to think about to make sure that we're still protecting our data. So I've already talked about many of these, but the one item I haven't really talked about is IoT. So the number and types of devices, it's just not those phones and those tablets and those laptops anymore. It's IoT devices. I can now do all my mail from my watch, right? So we need to think about how these new devices are going to be impacting this security component. Also, globalization. So as companies do M&A, as we broaden our business perspectives, that means we're global now. That means we have to think about the new vectors and who might be attacking us. If you're in different countries, trust me, there's different people going after you. And you have to think about how they get in. So some of those challenges are, how do we make sure the end user's devices are secured? How many people are still using VPNs? Yep. How many are 100% sure your policy doesn't basically let them have full ride on your backbone? Yeah, the number of arms just went down. Right, VPNs were the bane of my existence. You just let everybody's home, not only their home device, but their home network into your data center and into your environments. Because it's complex to manage all those policies. And you need to have that visibility. We have a bunch of tools in place to manage certain areas, right? We have an MDM solution, we have firewalls, we have threat detection systems. But how many of those actually talk together, and how many of those can you bring all of the data together to have a full view of what users are doing and what your applications are doing? So the Citrix security approach is really taking our full portfolio. It's not just virtual apps and desktops. It's not just MDM. It's actually bringing the full suite together to help address these larger, bigger problems. So the areas that we focus on are contextual and secure access. So how do you get your users in and make sure they are who they are and their devices are what you think they are? Device security. And we're not just talking iOS and Android, we're talking Macintosh, Chromebook, and Windows as well. How do you reduce the internal and external threats that are coming at your applications now? Because they're coming from multiple directions, especially if you're using third-party applications out there. How do you make sure that your data is still secure? Content collaboration. How do you ensure that the people who should be opening documents are those people and nobody else? How do you make sure that they're sharing with the people they should? Not just copy, paste, and send it off to Aunt Lucy because there's a cool thing in it. And finally, governance, risk, and compliance. We all have compliance in some way. Either it's PCI, it's HIPAA, it's DoD regulations, it's government regulations, or our own industry. How do we make sure that everything that we're doing is helping to apply and solve those solutions? And underlying it is analytics. If you don't have an end-to-end view of your environment from a security perspective, not looking at 10 different tools, not looking at 10 different screens, but how do you have a full picture of what's actually going on? And we're going to talk about our analytics solution as well. So Akhilesh, what are we going to talk about today?
All right.
Specifically.
Yes. So thank you, Robin, for giving a little bit of an overview of what we're going to talk about. But the key takeaway I want you guys to get from this conversation is the focus on defense in depth. And that has been the Citrix mantra towards providing the security at different layers. So if you look at the slide that we are showing here, these are essentially your 5 different products that you may have purchased from 5 or 6 different vendors. That's where I think Citrix comes in and provides you a complete end-to-end security value across all the different verticals, different products, different use cases, different users, and the different applications. And what ties them together, as Robin was suggesting, is the analytics module, which brings in all of these data points, gets feed from all these different products, and gives you an overview picture or a complete picture across what's happening in your environment, what users are accessing, and what devices are being accessing your networks. So obviously there are 5 benefits that we talk about, but obviously we have only 45 minutes, so we're going to focus on the top 3. This is based on these surveys that we have done in the past, based on what customers are more kind of looking to hear from us. So in this session today, we are going to talk about the contextual secure access, which is nothing but our identity and access management story around single sign-on and security policies. And then obviously talk about a user accessing the application using different devices, which talks about the more device security, or how do I secure the user devices which they use to access these applications. And then in the end, we talk about what other threat vectors we should be looking at when we're moving to SaaS or different microservices with all these different threat verticals. So let's begin. Let's talk about what contextual and secure access is. This is something that you've been using mostly with your on-prem gateway, accessing your VDI environments and so on and so forth, but the story is bigger than that. So one of the 3 challenges actually we see across when customers talk about access is, I have too many access points, I have too many applications and I have too many access points for each application. How many of you are using Citrix Gateway for your virtual apps and desktops? And keeps your hand up. And how many users are using SSL VPN? And then how many users are using single sign-on for SaaS and web, which is separate? Okay. So mostly, if you look at all these customers, they have all these different solutions for different application types, which makes the environment not only complex to manage, but it results in a not so good end user experience. And in the end, the policies that Robin was talking about, the inconsistency that we see across policy that you would apply for an SSL VPN versus your single sign-on to SaaS versus your virtual apps and desktops, they may not be very consistent. And obviously, when users are accessing all these different applications, not only do they not get a good user experience, but now they have to go through different requirements that you are asked for them. So the solution mostly is, can you go one back? So when we talk about the multiple access points, it means that the solution that we provide is how do I now consolidate all these different access points into one single solution that can give me not only access to my virtual apps and desktops, but also can give me a secure access to remote users for my SaaS, for my on-prem web, my data, and so on and so forth, which obviously results in a much better end user experience. The second point to it is for the IT, especially for you guys, is managing 3, 4, 5 different solutions may not be the best use of your time and resources and your skills. The solution that we help is more on consolidation on how do I make sure that I not only provide a much better end user experience, but make it life easier for my IT admins and my IT to manage and provide one single solution for all my users. Also, the fact that now I can go and apply all my security policies in one place, and they are consistent and they are timely, and they adhere to my organization policies for accessing my applications. So last year, we announced Citrix Access Control service, which is basically bringing all these different pieces together, which provides you access to not only your virtual apps and desktops, but it also gives you access to your SaaS, your web applications, as well as you can control access to the internet. Now, if you look at all these 4 use cases that I mentioned on the slide, which is web filtering, proxy, SSO, and the security policies, these again are 4 different vendor products today. And our intention is to now start consolidating and help you kind of provide more value to your users and get a much better ROI for managing only one solution, which is a cloud service. By doing that, not only do I get the user experience that I'm talking about, which is single sign-on to all your apps, which is your SaaS apps, native. I'm not talking about virtualized apps. Natively SaaS apps and also web apps which you have deployed on premises, as well as your virtual apps and desktops. Now, over and above that, you can start applying all these security policies, wherein if you look at the way other access management solutions work, they'll help you authenticate with multi-factor, with contextual access, and so on and so forth. But they can't control what a user does after they are authenticated. And this is where we add value over your existing single sign-on solutions is we can provide you a much granular set of security policies where you can enforce some SaaS pages to be watermarked. You want to control copy-paste for end users. You want to control all that good stuff wherein when a user is accessing your SaaS applications, they are not able to steal information or share it with the competitors. In addition to that, we have seen a lot of customers talk about compliance related requirements when the users are accessing the internet. Now, again, that is a different product. You would get it from a third-party vendor. But within the same service, we are offering very granular set of web filtering policies where you can now start enforcing these policies within our Citrix Cloud Service platform, wherein you can control what your users can access when they're on your corporate networks. Some of you may have some compliance requirements. And are there any colleges, universities, public universities or colleges here? No? So a lot of these public institutes, they have these requirements where students cannot access some objectionable content. There are a lot of other healthcare manufacturing vendors that have the requirement where they don't want users to access anything that is malicious, that may be malicious, which might affect their intranet. So all of those can be actually controlled now with access control service. And now, in addition to that, we also have our secure browser service inbuilt within this service, which provides you a complete isolated environment, wherein if you don't want your users to restrict access to the internet, they can still access internet using this sandbox environment that is hosted within Citrix Cloud. And in addition to that, now we also give you a complete set of analytics wherein you can see what users are accessing, what kind of risk scores do they have. So risk scores are calculated based on if they're trying to access any malicious content and so on and so forth. And based on the risk scores, you can start enforcing some of the policies of them accessing the internet. And coming soon, we're also looking at providing you more analytics on the users accessing the SaaS applications and web applications, and what actions are they taking when they are inside those SaaS applications. So these are the web filtering policies that we have inbuilt in the product. There are 180 categories, and you can actually start unblocking and blocking some of the users for accessing any of these web categories. So you will see for blocked URLs, you can mention any explicit allowed URLs, and then you can direct some of the traffic into the secure browser service. So the experience, what it looks like is, users can access their workspace using the Workspace app or the Workspace experience portal, wherein if they do the single sign-on, you can use any standard browser. But if you have these security policies enabled, then you can actually use your Workspace app and the browser that is included in the Workspace app to access your SaaS applications. And you'll see the watermarks and so on and so forth in those applications. And then you can actually start enforcing the web filtering policies for the links that are in that SaaS applications. So anybody who's using Gmail, Office 365 here? Yeah? I'm sure you guys get all the spam and the links and that may be malicious in your Gmails and your Office 365 email accounts, right? So sometimes by accident, a lot of users click those and they can infect it with some malware content. So all this solution can actually block access to those sites explicitly. So one of the other things, if you go back. So one more, sorry. So last year when we introduced this service with access control, a lot of times, the biggest feedback that we got from you guys was, I want to use access control service, but I cannot because you don't integrate with my multi-factor authentication schemes that I have. So obviously, we are announcing tech preview for that, wherein you can actually start using your multi-factor authentication that you have built in with, with your Radius integrations, be it RSA, Symantec, and Duo. So these are already something that you have already configured with on-prem Citrix Gateway. So Citrix Gateway obviously allows you to access your applications, but if you're looking to move to cloud, we used to offer the one-time password, one-time native password, which is generally available today. But now you can extend those gateway authentication schemes onto the Citrix workspace. So this will allow you to now start authenticating your users with all the N-factor policies that you have defined with on-prem Citrix Gateway. You can actually now start authenticating your users with any integrations that you have done with Citrix Gateway. And if you are using Duo Security, RSA, Symantec VIP, or even our own native passwords, native one-time password, you can start now extending that to the Citrix Workspace users. So this is something that we're going to make it available very, very soon. So how are we different, and why should I buy Citrix for providing contextual and secure access? So one is obviously the consolidation that we provide with all your secure access to apps that we have within your environments. And then over and top of that, we allow you a much granular set of policies where you can now start enforcing watermarks and copy-paste control and print controls for users accessing SaaS or web applications. And then obviously our authentication, multi-factor authentication is based on the zero trust model, wherein you can do the EPS scans for your end user devices, and based on the location, the device being used, and so on and so forth, you can actually throw them the authentication challenge depending on all those different parameters. And then in the end, provide you a complete end-to-end view of your users accessing all the applications that are sitting behind access control, be it your virtual apps, SaaS apps, web apps, as well as the mobile apps. So let's move forward, right? So this is something that we provide with our MDM solution, which is around, securing your end user devices. Sorry, I just keep clicking this. So this is basically your device security, where the first challenge that we see is multiple devices. How many of you guys have multiple devices that you manage or that are user-owned? And they may be those Android devices, iOS devices, Mac, Windows, all of that stuff. And then other part is, one of the challenges is, how do I, but the security policies that I have are so rigid that I cannot make intelligent decisions based on, what users are trying to access. As well as, how do I now secure data that is sitting on those devices? It can be stored on your MacBooks, it can be stored on your Windows or your mobile devices. How do I make sure that I can, protect the data that is on the end user devices? Because a lot of times, end users may be using their own personal devices. So for the multiple devices, we have centralized security, wherein now you can manage all the different type of devices, not only Android and iOS, but also your Mac, Windows, and Linux environments. And also, we provide you a complete zero trust model to prevent the unauthorized access. So with the zero trust model now, since we own the devices and we manage it for you, we can actually get all the state of the user device. We can fingerprint them. We can do whatever policy that you want to enforce for the end user devices, and give you a complete data protection based on the policies that you want to set for your data and rest, data and motion coming in from those devices, and so on and so forth. So Citrix Endpoint Management, it does support all the user devices that you may have. So you may have current solution, I don't know how you have deployed today. In the past, Citrix Endpoint Management used to manage iOS and Android and mobile devices. And now we're extending that to the Windows, Linux, and your Macs, and so on and so forth. So using that, not only you can actually provide your, you can do the endpoint provisioning and configuration of your devices, but also you can actually push all the apps, all the configuration schemes, or any authentication policy that you want to enforce for that device accessing your applications. In addition to that, you can also now provide an additional level of security across applications. So if you don't want to manage your end user devices, you can still manage applications sitting on those devices. And using this, you can now segregate the traffic that is coming from your personal apps like Facebook. You don't want Facebook to access any official or corporate information that is sitting on your devices. So you can actually now do that with our MAM policies and the MDX wrappers that comes with those. You want to add anything to that, Robin?
Yeah, so this is the MAM solution for Citrix is in addition to the MAM policies that are on all the OSs that exist today. So this is above and beyond that. So if you're using our secure mail or secure web, it automatically has the micro VPN turned on in it, and we'll make a connection back to the gateway service for just that one application on the device. Mm-hmm. So it makes it a lot easier to control what users can and cannot do and what traffic is actually coming into your environment. The other thing is that it's FIPS compliant. So if you're in the DoD or federal government, or basically most industries recognize FIPS as a encryption protocol that they will allow coming from those devices. The security vault around these applications are FIPS compliant. So that means that if the device gets lost or stolen, that's pretty much unable to be broken into. So those are some really good things. The passcode is also a really good feature set. So you can just use your finger or a 6 or 8 digit code, which you actually get to decide your users can and cannot use. So at Citrix, we actually use both. We have both the physical thumb, touch authentication, as well as the PIN. So if you go for so long, I think we have it set to a week. Anything over a week, you have to re-put the PIN in, not just the
for the secure mail.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this allows you to kind of give some flexibility to users to not manage their own devices or manage their devices. You can actually just manage some apps sitting on their personal devices. And you can still lock.
Yeah, as an
for access
ex-IT
to those
admin,
apps.
I don't like people touching my machine, so I use secure mail, and I'm happy about it because I still control the device.
Yep. So obviously, with Citrix Gateway coming in this integration that we have with us, Citrix Endpoint Management, now it allows you to do a complete single sign-on to all your SaaS apps or the apps that you have deployed on your mobile phones, and also do a multi-factor check, depending on the contextual parameters of the user, where they're coming from, and so on and so forth. So you can do all the multi-factor authentication with Gateway. And then you can also do a SSL termination. Now, what SSL termination allows you to do is it takes the load off the server in the back end and improves the performance of your applications. That's the kind of value prop that we bring in with the integration that we have with the Gateway, with the Endpoint Management. And in addition to that, oh man, can you go on? We'll also be announcing soon is the Gateway service doing all the authentication as well as single sign-on for your mobile apps. So this is something that we are also demoing at the booth. If you want to stop by, you can take a look at it. But generally, the use cases that you're using the on-prem gateway for, you can actually now use it with the cloud service, which is the Gateway service. So that's something that is going to be coming soon. So again, how are we different? It's a complete comprehensive endpoint management. If you are looking at doing any MDM/MAM projects with your company, you can consider the Citrix Endpoint Management. And the value that it provides is not only we get the feed from the access points, now you can actually get the feeds from your CEM, which is the Endpoint Management device, into Citrix Analytics. And once you start seeing the data in Citrix Analytics, now you can start enforcing policies based on the data that you have for certain users or users using your own devices. And you can track what devices they're using, where they're coming in from, what kind of applications they're using. And there are some proactive methods that allow you to enforce some access for those users based on their risk scores. So if they're accessing if they're coming in, for example, a jailbroken device, for example, you can actually restrict their access to coming into your network and accessing your applications at all. So all of those stuff, that can happen with Citrix Analytics, that brings to the table. And then obviously, if you have Intune and Microsoft Intune, you can actually add value with Endpoint Management for MAM use cases. So the third benefit that we're going to talk about is now I have secured my users' access to my applications, providing them the end user experience, and simplified my life as an IT person. I've also secured my devices. Now, how do I protect applications from threats like malware or spyware, right? So that's the next defense in-depth mechanism that we use at Citrix. So obviously, a challenge around here is I have a lot of BYO initiatives in my company, and I'm just afraid that they may be infected with some malware, because you don't control what people do or users do on their own devices. They can go to any site, they can have a keylogger or a screen capturing malware sitting in the device, which can steal information from your application sessions. And that includes your username and passwords, that includes any PII information that you may be sending, and that can break your PCI compliance. The protection from bots, this is now coming up quite a bit. Bots are everywhere, they're omnipresent. How do I detect what traffic is coming from a human versus coming from a bot, and how do I protect my application downtime if the bots are coming in and sending the fictitious traffic. And then in the end, I am also working on a lot of microservices, and my microservices talk to other microservices. And how do I protect that communication between these? How do I protect my partners' applications calling my application for some information that the application needs through APIs? So those are the big challenges that we see from the customers. And obviously, we have solutions around. If you looked at the keynote, we announced the extended security capabilities for Citrix Workspace with app protection policies. And these are the set of policies where, you can actually, if there is a keylogger deployed on your end user device, you can actually protect the information flow between the end user and the application itself, starting from your login screens and inputting in anything or getting information from the app. And that is the keyword protection. And you can then also, for if you are to share some information or on a GTM or a WebEx or a Skype or whatever web conferencing mechanism that you use, a lot of times you end up showing some confidential information by mistake, or if your customers or somebody asks for it. And nothing stops them from taking a screen capture of those presentations. So how do I provide you controls for disabling screen capture, not only for my customers and the external users, but also for my internal employees who can take a screenshot of my Salesforce data and give it to competitors? And in the end, the bot management. So bot management is something that we're going to be announcing very soon as a part of the ADC portfolio. And that helps you detect and limit access of bots to your applications, meaning it can improve your application uptime if there is a bot attack coming into your application environments, as well as your API protection. So authentication, authorization of your API to API calls, encryption of the APIs end-to-end, rate limiting those APIs, all of that good stuff we will provide with our ADC portfolio. So this is just like a slide that I was talking about, the app protection, wherein you are a user, you're logged into your whatever SaaS applications or web applications or even virtual applications you're using. How do I make sure that my protection that I'm sharing with the application is protected? And this is also a requirement for PCI compliance. This also protects your PII, and it can be. It also protects your user information credentials from keyloggers who can push it out to the hackers and they can get access to the internet or intranet. So all of these policies are available or going to be available very soon, in addition to the copy-paste commands and the print commands that you can disable today for your SaaS and web applications. So this is the kind of defense in depth and the security policies that we provide with our cloud services. Also coming soon is the bot management. This is something that we are really excited about. A lot of customers have been asking for. They're using Citrix ADC for load balancing their web applications or any external facing applications. But the traditional ADCs, if you look at the past of the ADCs, they cannot detect if it's a traffic coming from a bot or a real human user. Now these capabilities will be kind of available in ADC portfolio, where you can actually now go and implement these policies and get defense against bots. We do some signature detection. We do fingerprinting of the devices. You can control where the traffic is coming from and how much traffic that you can accept from a certain IP or IP ranges or devices coming in those applications. That also, you can also protect any application layer DDoS, because you can now limit the traffic coming in from a certain IP address or a certain device. You can also look at getting protection from any password scrapping or spraying or any credential stuffing attacks that comes as a part of these. So this allows all the protection against your bot attacks that you will. From the API side, which is also going to be part of the ADC offering, is the ability to authenticate and authorize an API to API call. And what that means is we can use multiple mechanisms to authenticate your APIs. It can be using the API keys, or it can be using any OAuth protocol for authorization purposes for what APIs can access within a different application. You can also do rate limiting, and this is something that is something very important, because this allows you to set limits on how much data or how much information an API can share with your external API can share with your own application APIs. So that allows you to prevent any attacks from bots sending in a lot of information and getting your application down. So that becomes a challenge when you're opening your APIs and nothing is controlling it. And then the end, you can also do a transport level security where you can encrypt end to end. So in case there is a man in the middle sitting between your APIs and the external APIs, they cannot now intercept and read what's going on, what information is being shared, or they cannot interject or put in their own information in that particular session. Anything, Robin, you would like to add on?
Yeah,
on these?
I just want to make sure that everyone understands that the APIs is not restricted to microservices and containers. Most developers are moving to starting to use APIs to gather information and move it back and forth between different systems, both internally and externally. So being able to authenticate and validate that the API calls are coming from the systems you're expecting them from and not from random users. The other thing is botnets. So we haven't seen a whole lot of this in the US yet. It is growing quite quickly around the world. I don't know if anyone's from the APAC region. Companies are actually using this against other companies. So the air traffic, small airlines that do short haul flights in APJ, there's a lot of them, like hundreds of them, there's just a lot of them. And what the companies are doing is putting up bots against other companies by blocking all of their seats so no one can actually reserve a seat on flights. Yeah, it's actually put some of them out of business. So you need to think about in your own environments, what type of web apps do you have available, not only to your end users, but to your customers, that competitors or people who are looking to do malicious things for you are actually going to try to use against you. Especially if you're working in a really tight vertical, that there's maybe a handful of you. It's something to keep on. A lot of people look at this and go, oh, that doesn't apply to me at all. This is totally going to apply to you, not only now, but definitely in the next probably 6 months to a year.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I don't know if you have seen any accessing your websites on the internet, they prompt you for some CAPTCHA kind of thing, because asking you if you're a bot or if you're a robot, and go and click on the pictures that have traffic lights or cars. I think that's one way to kind of obviously look at protecting it, but obviously that's not the only way, or that's not the 100% guarantee that the bot traffic will not still go beyond that.
Yeah, and they're getting much more sophisticated,
yeah.
So CAPTCHA is not going to necessarily save you in the near future.
So that's why I think you need to look at a more a holistic solution that can not only provide you against bots, but also from APIs to API calls from users who are trying to access internet or internet applications and so on and so forth.
So actually, I have one more thing, sorry, Akhilesh.
Go ahead.
So you need to think about it also, if you're like healthcare and you use the same systems to allow your customers to be able to see their patient records, be able to see what kind of medication they're getting and things like that. If that's the same system that then your employees use, that's where you got to start thinking, how am I protecting both sides?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right, so this is something obviously coming soon. We've talked about protection, app protection, keyloggers, and bot management and API protection. So let's talk about what you can use today as well. Is something that we also sell with Citrix ADC is our web application firewall. Anybody here familiar with that? Not much?
Not
okay.
fair.
Yeah, few there, that's a good thing. So application, the web app firewall that we have is a complete application level firewall that we sell along with our Citrix ADC licenses. And you can use and turn on these application firewall capabilities for web applications that you may have deployed for your internal users or even for your external customers. So any web-facing, any internet-facing web applications can now be protected against from all the different type of attacks using our web application firewall. So if you look at the OWASP top 10, which is Open Web Application Security Project, this is a set of people who have come together as a community to define, what are the most occurring security attacks for web applications. And I think the latest release is from 2017 because they still look at the 2018, 2019 data to kind of come up with the list. But they do kind of do a periodic update of this list. And from the 2017 list that is the most current, we do protect against all the attacks that they have categorized in their top 10 list. In addition to that, you can actually also restrict any IP addresses trying to access your web applications with IP reputation that we have. And you can now look at all the, intelligently look at detecting the malicious traffic that is coming to your websites. And this is also required for PCI compliance. So for PCI compliance, I think mandates having a app firewall sitting in front of your web properties. So this is something that if you are in that industry, finance or anything that is processing credit cards, I think this is something that you should look at.
Yeah, this is foundational. If you're not running a web app firewall in front of your web services, go home and put one in.
Yeah. So in the last, we talk about now, we spoke about the Citrix analytics piece with the security analytics, and this is how, kind of a screenshot of what your security analytics look like for application firewall traffic. So first of all, obviously, you will look at, we show you all the certificate information. These are certificates that may be expired, may be expiring soon, maybe the most up-to-date. And this allows you a tool where you can actually now monitor all your SSL certificates that you may have deployed in your application environments. In addition to that, you can also look at the signature algorithms. Are you using the latest and the most secure algorithms? If not, then you can actually go and take a look at and then start updating those algorithms or getting new certificates. You can also look at all the virtual server information, ADC instances, whether they are available, whether they're not available, all in one single place. And in the end, you can also look at all the users who are using SSL certificates and what kind of key strengths they have for signatures. So this is all in one place, gives you a complete holistic view of your SSL environment. And then obviously there are other analytics that we provide with Citrix Analytics, not in the scope of this session, but all those endpoint management that I was talking about earlier, all of those, they have different dashboards in the same platform, where you can actually now see what users are accessing from the endpoints, your applications like SaaS and web, what kind of internet links all they're using. All this information is available to you with Citrix Analytics. So with that, just want to talk about the differentiators that we have. So again, it's a defense in depth approach. It's not a point solution. It's not a point-specific use case that Citrix talks about, but it provides an end-to-end value across all these different layers of applications, devices, users, and whatnot to give you a complete, holistic, secure environment. So with that, I'll give it to Robin to wrap the conversation.
Thank you. So hopefully you learned a lot. It's about our entire portfolio. It's how you put everything together and how you visualize where things are. So we just went through the first three. Content collaboration was kind of hidden in there if you were paying attention. And then governance, risk, and compliance. We actually have a whole website on citrix.com now that talks to our security story. I also want to pimp a couple of other sessions that we'd love you to go see. Session 115, oh wait, that's us. 122, sorry, I had another session I was trying to put on too. 122, access management with Akalish later this week. SYN120, which is about our security analytics. If you haven't played with it, if you haven't seen it, go see Blake. This will be a great session. And then SYN236, which is really talking the broader workspace and how security ties into that specifically. Again, a really good session with some of our colleagues. Please, the other thing I want to tell you about is on Citrix.com, we now have a trust center. Who has heard of a trust center? A handful of you. So it's the new industry thing. Everyone who has a SaaS service, so if you go to Microsoft, you go to Workday, you go to Salesforce, they all have trust centers. And what the trust center is it tells you really what we do about security, what we do in the cloud, how we handle incidents, how our products are secured. So if you're looking at our products and you get questions from your CISOs, the perfect place to go and get the actual information about what we do and do not do. And it also has links to all of our security documentation. So it's a great resource to go out and check out. Hopefully you enjoyed our session and you learned something, a little something at least. Please rate us. We'd love to hear what you have to say. And hopefully we'll see you at one of our other sessions. Thank you so much.
Thank you.